let's get this quarterfinal going. On the left-hand side, in the Christmassy, very festive but out-of-season sleeves, at least when this video is posted, who knows when you're watching it, we have the starter set, the third starter set from DM10, Shockwaves of Shattered Rainbow, and on the right-hand side, in the very stylish and handsome sleeves, of course, we have the Twin Swarm deck. Interestingly enough, both of these decks came out in DM10, and both of these decks feature Fire and Nature. So as you see in these games, these two decks actually run a lot of the same cards. But there are differences, of course. The starter set also runs Water, which gives them access to blockers. But the Twin Storm deck has one big advantage, which is it's running Gonta as a 2-drop. I don't know why the starter set is not running 2-drop. I guess they thought that maybe, like, I don't know, multicolored creatures would be confusing to new players. But you can see here on this board that starter set played Adventure Board, Twin Storm played Gonta, and they already have such an advantage here because, yeah, Adventure Board is cute. It's 1000 can go up to 3, but Gonta is 4k, and it's just massive here. There's no way to deal with it currently, and I actually don't know if the third starter set has many ways at all to deal with it. But getting back to it, Fairy Life putting a Gonta in mana, which is unfortunate because that means that it goes tapped and that mana cannot be used this turn. And I think the Twin Storm deck could have played a 2-drop with the 2 remaining mana, but because the Fairy Life hit a Gonta, then of course we don't get that. Anyway, Bronze Arm Tribe into Aqua Vehicle, the starter set just spamming the board with a whole bunch of creatures. But all of these creatures combined, they cannot deal with the Gonta on the right hand side, and the Gonta just keeps on taking shields. And now the Gonta is joined by 2 other Beast Folks in Burning Mane and Adventure Boar ready to swing together. But in terms of numbers, the starter set does have the advantage, and I think, yeah, here you start to swing because if you don't swing soon, you're just going to lose to Gonta beatdown, I guess. And yeah, there we go. Down to 2 shields on Twin Swarm, but that Gonta can still attack and can swing back. That said, though, there are 2 blockers ready to block attacks back on the tapped creature, so only Gonta can swing safely into these creatures, which means that, okay, even if Gonta kills 1 creature, there's still 3 creatures left that could attack and inflict lethal damage for the Twin Storm deck. But of course we see a Windax in hand for the Twin Storm deck, which can destroy a blocker, so that's probably what's gonna end up happening here. We know that the Twin Storm deck has a lot of blocker removal, so there we go. Or maybe there's an even better option. There's a Cavern Raider, which, oh, I see, evolves into Bark Whip. That's cool because, yeah, now this allows all 3 creatures to swing over those pesky blockers, right? Because Bark Whip powers everything up. And so you can pretty much destroy all of the tapped creatures. And yeah, that's really bad news for the starter set. Or I guess you can protect one of the tapped creatures by sacrificing your blockers. And maybe that's a good idea to keep up the board pressure. Yeah, it seems like that's what's gonna end up happening. And yeah, I think this was kind of the only possible line of play because you really need to try to swing here. So breaking the last 2 shields and summoning another creature ready to take the game next turn. But of course that creature is a blocker, which it kind of had to be. Because there's 4 attackers coming in on Twin Swarm, but we know that there's the Windax in hand. We saw it last turn, so that's probably what's gonna end up happening here. Yeah, there's the Windax coming along, killing the blocker, and now 2 mana as well for another creature in Adventure Boar, and the board is just completely wiped clear. You could even attack here. There's no risk, like there's no shield trigger creatures or speed attackers or anything in the starter set, but they decide to just hold off until next turn. They need... yeah, I don't even know if there's any combination of shield triggers Well, maybe if there's like 3 tornado flames in shields at this point, because there's 3 shields and there's 6 attackers. So I think you pretty much need like 3 tornado flames exactly to survive this. And even that well, never mind. Okay, summoning the evolution double breaker, and at this point, because of the double breaker, there's just nothing. No combination of shield triggers could save this, and Gonta swings for game. Game 2 of this quarterfinal. Let's see what happens. Let's see if the starter set can come back into it. The last game was pretty close. Twinstorm was put to 0 shields. So I'd say there's a decent chance that it's anybody's game. Any of these 2 decks can win this. But yeah, we'll have to see. If there's Gonta, like we saw the amount of work that Gonta put in the last game. If there's no Gonta, however, I think these 2 decks can be on even footing. Depends on the draws, of course. But let's see what happens. An adventure board, just like last time. Is there a Gonta, just like last time, on the Twinstorm deck? Let's see. Adventure board versus Gonta is really not fun. It's not a fun matchup, but no. Okay, it's adventure board on adventure board. This is gonna be more interesting. So basically the adventure board that attacks first will die. So let's see who decides to break first and lose their creature. The thing is, I think the starter set kind of has to go on the aggressive, because if Twinstorm manages to establish a board and swing with Bark Whips and such, I don't think you can come back from that. So maybe they even swing with the adventure board here, and then the Fear Fang can destroy the opponent's adventure board, but they decide not to. That's also a fair line of play, not wanting to lose adventure board for free. And there's Cavern Raider. So 2000 power doesn't do much on this board, but if that creature breaks a shield, they can search for anything they want in the deck, which could be scary. It could be a Bark Whip, or it could be a whole bunch of things. So let's see, Cragzor here, and I think maybe here you start to swing. And yeah, there we go. Breaking 2 shields. I mean, the adventure board can swing back on the adventure board, but the Cavern Raider kind of wants to take a shield. So yeah, conceivably the adventure board could trade the Fear Fang and the Cavern Raider could trade the adventure board, but I don't think that's the plan here, because Cavern Raider really wants to take a shield. So most likely, yeah, I don't know. Let's see what happens here. The situation on the board is interesting. Second Cavern Raider. Wow, okay. Yeah, it seems like that's the play here. And board on board action, and Cavern Raider does break a shield, which means that Cavern Raider can search. Oh, wait, it's a shield trigger. It's a Spiral Gate, which returns the Cavern Raider to hand. And of course, now that Cavern Raider broke a shield, there can be search. And let's see what they decide to take. Maybe a Gonta, maybe a Bark Whip. Yeah, there's a Bark Whip. That makes sense. Which we have to assume that there's another Beast Folk in hand to evolve it on top of next turn. But anyway, because the thing is that both the Cavern Raider and the adventure board are pretty much guaranteed to die this turn, right? So there's no bait for Bark Whip left, but there's probably some in hand, because that deck is just full of Beast Folks, right? So there we go. That's interesting. Playing that card. That guy, if there's 2 or fewer shields, they kill a creature, but there's 3 shields. However, I got to assume that it was the only playable creature in hand, so it's better to play than not to play it, I guess, because otherwise you'd have to wait 2 turns for it, which is too much. But there we go. There's the Bark Whip coming that was searched with Cavern Raider last turn, and this Bark Whip is trouble. But that said, more shields are being broken, and Twinstorm is down to 1 shield, and this is interesting, right? Because there's 3 attackers. Of course, one of them can be destroyed, but there needs to be more done to stop lethal from coming next turn. So let's see what happens here. Twinstorm doesn't have that much removal, but yeah, there's a Bronze Arm Tribe, which doesn't really help in this situation. Brawler Zyler, again, doesn't help, but Bark Whip does help. Okay, so second Bark Whip, 2 Bark Whips killing those two creatures, and these Bark Whips are each sitting at 7,000 power now, and this is starting to look scary. Adventure Boar, not really, not really what you want to see here. Decided not to take that final shield, which I think is wise because, yeah, you don't want to give them options, and now you're presenting lethal next turn. They need to deal with this, and like I said, there's not much removal in that deck, but there is a Tornado Flame, which is interesting, and I think at this point you have to swing for shields. There's no shield trigger creature in the starter set, so there's not much risk of like running into a surprise lethal by swinging. And 2 shield triggers, but unfortunately it's just Fairy Lives, which is really not what you want to see in this situation. So let's see, there's 4 attackers on Twin Swarm and 1 shield left on the starter set. This game is pretty close. If there's some removal, then Adventure Board can take Brawler Zyger, and then if there's some removal combined with some shield triggers, combined with maybe some blockers, there is some chance of surviving and maybe coming back. But yeah, let's see, there is 1 blocker, and it seems like they're thinking about something. Tapping 3 mana for a Phantom Dragon's Flame, but the thing is, because of Bark Whip, Phantom Dragon's Flame cannot destroy the Burning Mane, so they can only destroy the Brawler Zyger, which is probably still worth doing just to take that final shield, right? Like destroy Zyger, take that final shield, and just hope another Fairy Life trigger, but on the other side this time. There's a technical error, like it's not supposed to be the battery cluster tapped, it's supposed to be the Adventure Board on the left hand side, but yeah, this is what it is. Now, just 2 creatures, and yeah, I guess here you can kill the tapped Adventure Board, which is supposed to be tapped, and I guess you can, apparently not swinging for shield, just holding on for next turn, because there's no rush. There's no rush to do it. There's no Holy O in the starter set, and I don't think there's any shield that could save them here, so I would guess that in a couple of attacks the game will be over, and there we go, Gonta swings for game. So there we go, Twin Swarm takes it home. A couple of close games, and both of them the winning deck had 0 shields remaining. So I would say that overall the decks are not that far apart in strength, and we saw that they both use a lot of the same cards, but I think with the Bark Whips and with the Gontas you can definitely tell which the stronger deck is. It just feels like those Gontas and those Bark Whips, they add that little bit of extra speed and that little bit of extra punch. So yeah, and we saw that those 2 cards in particular really helped take both of the games home. In conclusion, this game was of course part of the Precon bracket tournament that I'm running on my channel, and if you haven't watched the other games from this tournament, you should. I will put a link to it in the description, and I'll put the updated bracket on the screen in just a few moments, but if you haven't seen the other duels and don't want to get spoiled, then this would be a good time to close this video and go watch those. Take care!